Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to start with a mission statement. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents. Through support and resources, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to hopefulness and greater peace of mind. Helping Parents Heal goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH welcomes everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourages open dialogue. Well, welcome, Michael and Renee. You want to take it from here?
Yeah, thanks, Tammy.
Yep.
Okay, so Michael Spremulli, did I say that right?
Spremulli, I give you a 95.9.
Thank you. So Michael lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and that's where I live. And I've joined a couple of his webinars, and I follow his company, Blue Ridge Astrology, on Instagram. I'm not sure when we first connected, but anyway. And so I reached out to Michael to see if he might teach us some things today, and he said yes. We've had a couple conversations. Um, so on Instagram, I love how Michael shares daily insights about the planets and their vibrational patterns. It's helped me understand the best times to take action or focus on certain things in my life. And what makes Blue Ridge Astrology different is that Michael focuses on planets, not the signs. His approach is both unique and practical. He combines his background as a therapist with evidence-based astrology that's grounded in science. Michael also has a real gift for making complex ideas simple, and he does it with humor, which I really appreciate. And so today, Michael will be guiding us through the new moon cycles for the next 12 months to help us understand how each one influences our emotions, growth, and most importantly, healing. So, Michael, I'll let you take it away. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, well, thank you so much to all of you for being here. I appreciate that immensely. I love talking astrology, and let's just get into this because I've got way more than I to share than probably time allotted.
Okay, and
And
I'm going to
once
say
you,
one thing. I'm sorry.
yes.
And
Oh
so if
yeah.
anybody has questions, put them in the chat box, please. And then Tammy and I will monitor the questions as we go along. Okay. And then everybody's on mute. So, okay, full attention, Michael. Thank you.
All right. So let me go ahead and get my screen going. Hang on. I got to hook my head around this camera here. We'll do that, and then this, and then go this way. If you saw this setup, you'd laugh. So now, can you see my screen? Someone just
Yes. Yeah.
nod or, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, good. All right,
Okay.
excellent. One thing before we get in, I just want to mention this so there's no awkwardness. I've had a congenital eye condition since birth. You will see this right eye kind of do its own thing and eyes dart around. Rest assured, I'm not on an illicit substance. That's just the way it is. So I just like to put that out there. So welcome to Vibrational Astrology and the Power of New Beginnings. I'm going to take you through some very practical uses of astrology that you'll be able to work with leaving here today. I am not going to bury you in what I like to call astroese and throw a bunch of technical terms around that means nothing. So let's dive in with today's roadmap. Here's what we're doing. I'm going to give you a brief personal introduction so that you realize I'm not some crackpot that just wandered in here off the street. I'm also going to give you a brief overview of vibrational astrology because it's important to realize how this system of astrology is different from other systems. We're going to look at the new moon energies for the next 12 months, starting with November, and giving you very practical things you can do during those new moon cycles. Let you know where to go from here regarding resources, and then last but not least, Q&A. I will stay as long as we need to for me to answer any and all questions that you may have. Our hosts are monitoring the chat. They'll probably come up for air at the end for questions, but as you get them, put them in there so you don't forget. All right, so who is this guy? Well, I'm Michael Spremulli. All right, I've been at this a while. My background, I've got a graduate degree in clinical psych. In a former life, I've been a therapist. Currently, in addition to being a professional full-time astrologer, I'm also a workplace personality profiler. Well, why am I telling you this? Because throughout my career, in addition to looking at thousands of charts, I've also assessed thousands of job applicants for companies matching the right person to the right job. And the reason that's important is because those two worlds really dovetail together. The world of personality assessment, as well as astrology, at least the type that I practice, is grounded in data. And there we go. Okay, so that's a little bit of background. I'm not going to bore you on my whole history, but that is only half of the story. One of the reasons that I immediately jumped at this opportunity when Renee contacted me is because of this guy right here. And this is my late nephew, Frankie. See, I'm tangentially connected to your world. My sister lost her baby boy in 2023 on May 29th. He had a genetic seizure disorder slash autism spectrum disorder called Dravet syndrome. And very, very few people have it. There's research. And he ended up passing because of a seizure that was just way too intense for his little body to handle. Frankie enjoyed things like One Direction and peacocks and YouTube and all sorts of different things. So when Renee reached out, it was like, yeah, I'm speaking to these folks because I think some of the information that I have with vibrational astrology will help give some context to just sort of this whole picture of life and where we are and what happens when we leave this physical plane. And while not being someone who's directly experienced what you've all went through, I've seen what my sister and husband and my other nephew have gone through.
Michael, you're muted.
You know, Frankie totally did that.
Yeah, he probably did do that because he was mischievous. Where did I cut out? That is so weird. The mute button's over here. Stuff like this happens all the time. Now I got goosebumps. Where did I cut out? Apologies.
I don't know exactly.
Whatever. I'll just keep rolling. So anyways, I just want to repeat this. He's not gone. He's just kind of changed forms, and this whole system of vibrational astrology will help give some clarity and context in that situation. So let's kind of move in real briefly here to what is vibrational astrology. It is like no other type of astrology you've ever run into before. And I'm not saying that as hype or, making false promises. It's a different system. So everything you know about astrology, keep an open mind because this approaches things in a completely different way. Astrology's been around for over 5,000 years in various formats, different systems, and most astrology focuses on archetypes, symbolism. Things like the moon represents our mother, Saturn represents our father. And there's all these different archetypes at play, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But vibrational astrology is a different approach. And the reason is we're in the energy business in vibrational astrology because we are not looking at archetypes, but rather how the energy of the cosmos is flowing through you as individuals and how the planetary motion impacts how we do things and what we do and in the environment that we do it in. An important distinction to make is that vibrational astrology is not deterministic. We do not subscribe to the mantra of as is above, so is below. Now, for those of you who may be into astrology, you may be thinking, oh, you're spreading sacrilege. What are you saying? Remember, this is a different system. And the reason it's different is because vibrational astrology is the only system out there that is based on research and scientific data. And I'm not going to get into all the studies and whatnot today, but the data that supports VA very much is in alignment with quantum physics and quantum mechanics, meaning that energy cannot be created or destroyed. And even though we may not see something in the room that we're in, it doesn't mean that that entity, energy, etc., isn't there for us to access. It's just on a different frequency. And speaking of frequencies, in vibrational astrology, pardon me, y'all, I'm on the back end of some crud here and I'm 90% done, but dealing with sinus stuff. In VA, we think of your mind as like a cosmic radio receiver. So in the moment we emerge on this earth and we take our very first breath, that's when our life here officially begins, once we leave the womb. And at that very moment, the planets in the sky are in a very specific and unique configuration for all of us. Even if you're born on the same day, the planets are always moving. And that energy gets stamped in to what we call your natal chart, your birth chart. And depending on how the planets were set up at the time that you took your first breath, that dictates what signals get through easily from the cosmos versus which signals do not. That's about as technical as I'm going to get. So I touched on this before. VA is the only system backed by data and research. So we're not just pulling stuff out of the air. We have a very strict criteria when we're looking at things, and research is ongoing constantly so that there's consistency. And that's what drew me to VA, because I've got a foot in both worlds. Yeah, I love the spiritual woo-woo, tarot cards, intuitives, all that sort of stuff. But I also like data because of my psych and personality assessment background. And VA checks both of those boxes. Here's an easy way to describe it. I want you to think of vibrational astrology not so much as a prediction or some soothsayer saying, yo, this is what you're going to have experienced on this day. It's not like that at all. It's a weather forecast, but it's cosmic weather. So here's an example. Using this weather forecast, let's say, you know what? I think I may want to go to the beach sometime this week, and I plan on going on Wednesday. Well, Wednesday doesn't look too good because we got rain. The high is only going to be 72. You look at that forecast and you might say, no, I don't think I want to go on Wednesday. However, you are free, if you choose, to go to the beach on the Wednesday, but you're just going to get wet and you're probably not going to enjoy it all that much. You see, the astrology does not dictate our actions. It lets us know what we're stepping into and when the timing is right. And that's the bulk of the work that I do with my private clients is people come to me for timing. When is this going to happen? What, etc. Now let's flip this example around a little bit and say, you know what? Based on the weather forecast, I should go to the beach on Monday. You got beautiful temperatures, 78. It's warm. It's sunny. It's great. But you wake up on Monday and it's like, you know, I think I'm just going to sit home and eat a bag of Skittles and watch Netflix. That's cool. You have that choice. Again, the astrology doesn't make us do anything. It just lets us know what the conditions are like. So you may opt to not go to the beach, and that's just as fine as going. So I want you to kind of use that as the frame of reference when we're talking astrology and when we get into the new moons. What we're looking at are optimal times to engage in specific activities. Now, there are thousands of different factors in astrology, and just by show of hands, for those of you who have your cameras on, how many of you kind of dabble in astrology or know a little bit about your sun, moon, rising? Just kind of give me a wave. You know, yeah, some of you. Okay. So you know then that there are thousands of things. You can look at new moons, full moons, ascendants, midheavens. There's all these different components. So why did I pick the full moon for this presentation today? Well, several reasons. We get 12 of them every year. Every month you have a full moon. And for the technical folks out there, that's when the sun and the moon are sitting in the same coordinate in the sky. They're sitting next to each other. And they offer Every new moon offers a fresh slate, a new start of a cycle. And we have 12, as I said, each year, but each of these cycles are a little bit different, as you're about to see. New moon energy is also gentle. So it makes intentions easier to set. It's not like when you're dealing with a full moon where everything's building up to a culmination, and then it's like, sometimes a little chaotic, and we're all aware that more accidents tend to happen on a full moon. ERs tend to burst full on a full moon, and the stories that come out of those situations, we've heard about those for years. But the new moon energy is more gentle and inviting. Each new moon brings a theme for you to guide your focus on what type of actions you want to make or take. And new moons are the time for you to plant your seeds. I mean that physically, literally and figuratively. Meaning, here's a little side tip. If you're doing any type of gardening, indoor, outdoor, what have you, obviously if you're in the north and the winter months come, you probably can't do too much outdoor gardening. But you want to give that garden an extra jump, plant it on or around the new moon. Cosmically, it just seems to work out. So new moons bring in this opportunity for us to initiate things. It's a time for beginnings. And they set the stage for you to do small steps that relate to meaningful change over time. It's not about blowing up your life, the new moon of every month, but rather, what are we going to work on and what are we going to address for the next 30 days ahead thematically? And then last but not least, I just want to mention a little bit about how the energy works. Now, a lot of people, by the way, will throw around the phrase energy. You got to work with the energy. You got to energy. And then they fall short and say, well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. You just got to be with the energy. I'm going to tell you exactly how to work with the energy. And all that means is engaging in tasks that align with the energetic frequency of what's going on at the time. So new moons happen at a particular time and day each month, but that energy is strongest for the first 7 to 10 days. It's sort of like the kickoff for that cycle. And then it's still there in the background. It doesn't disappear. So it's not like you have this very narrow window that you got to get stuff done in, but rather it sets the stage. And it's sort of like when you're planting those seeds, you're getting the ground ready, you're getting your fertilizer ready, and the lighting and all the temperature, you're getting all those things set up. That's what's most critical during the first 7 to 10 days. And then you can continue to utilize the energy moving forward. All right, enough of that. That's enough background for this point. I want to get into stuff that you can use. So here's what I did. When I was looking at this and I was speaking with Renee, it was like, there's different ways we can go. I'm going to just start in November and go for a year, giving you the highlights of the new moon energy for each month. By the way, you will have access to all of these slides. So if you want to take notes, I encourage you to do so. A good way to do that is to, if you have a calendar nearby, whether it's electronic or paper, whatever it is, grab that and maybe jot some of these themes down in there so that you've got it when it shows up. But you'll have the slides at the same time. So the way I'm going to walk you through these is we're going to talk about real briefly the energy itself of the sign. Now, during the intro, Renee had read, or Tammy, I forget who read the intro, that I generally don't focus on signs. And that's true when I'm doing the daily forecast and when I'm working with people individually, because the planets give us a lot more detailed information. But for this type of scenario, when we have months that we're looking at and we're looking for the overarching theme, the signs do a good job of letting us know thematically what energy we're dealing with. And those of you who have placements in a given sign for any month, and if you know what that means, great. And if not, I'm going to tell you real quick, meaning, your sun sign is in that particular sign, or your moon, or your rising sign, or the more planets you have in a particular sign, you could expect to feel the energy of that sign more intensely. We all experience it, but what determines how much or little of that energy we experience comes down to how much activation happens in your own personal chart. So let's look at Scorpio. Scorpio new moon happens November 20th, 2025. Now, up here, I want to explain how these slides are set up so that when you go back and look at them, you'll know what's what. Up here where it says core energy above the divider, that is simply the core energetic description of that sign based on vibrational astrology research. So you're going to hear some different descriptions compared to what you may know about the signs up till this point. Remember, this is a different model. So some things will be familiar and similar. Other things will be a little different. When we get down here to the theme and action, what I'm talking about there is how specifically this energy will show up during the new moon in that particular month. So Scorpio energy is always going to be diffuse, but the theme and action is getting modified based on whichever new moon that we're in. So let me just start going and this will all make sense. So what does it mean, diffuse? First of all, any Scorpios in the house? If so, raise your hands, wave at me, or if you know a Scorpio, and will be fun for you because as we're going through this, think of the people who you know in your life that you know their sun sign, and you can start applying this. Scorpios are intense. Scorpio energy is wanting to just become enmeshed in a particular situation. It's a real focus. It's a dissolving of boundaries and borders, and they just want to be in the zone. That's why the old joke is you never date a Scorpio, you just marry them because they're going deep. They're going all in. So an example of fusing would be like if someone is watching a movie, a Scorpio does not want you talking to them. They don't want you having side conversations. They want to get in the zone and get locked in. They're just like melding with whatever it is that they're encountering. So on the new moon in November 20th, the theme that you can expect is deep insight and transformation through honesty and emotional courage. Now, here's the cool thing about energy that I haven't mentioned yet. You could apply the energy any way that you'd like. Think of energy, as we're talking about it, as ingredients in a recipe. So let's say you have flour, butter, sugar, eggs, yeast. That's synonymous with energy. How you combine those ingredients, the proportion of those ingredients, and how you then cook those ingredients will change the outcome radically based on those procedures that are involved. Same ingredients, but the preparation and the combination is what's different. So what I have to share with you for these 12 new moons is the theme and suggested action, but you can do what you want as long as it aligns with the energy, because that's when you'll have the smoother time. If you're doing something that is counter to the energy, that's when we get frustrated and experience friction and not have too good of a time. So this new moon brings in this transformational insight and honesty. It helps you really merge with whatever you've got going on. Maybe things that you've been avoiding, conversations that you've been putting off, that you've been like, yeah, I'm not ready for that. Scorpio brings in this deep dive energy. And it sets the stage for you to just jump in and immerse yourself. So a tangible action under the Scorpio new moon is choose one area of life, just one. Remember, we're not looking to build a condominium in 2 days. These are little steps that are doable and digestible. So choose one area of life that feels stuck and make a single courageous decision that moves you towards healing. And that can be one of countless things. But the idea is picking one thing to do a deep dive on, and then you ride that energy for the next month or so. Because again, each month, based on the sign that the new moon is in, gives us a different area of life to work on. So I'm going to keep moving. Remember, we'll come up for air at the end. I want to make sure I get all of these out on the table, and then we can answer any and all questions you've got. So let's look at Sagittarius, which happens in December. So Sagittarius is all about adventure and exploring. Any Sag folks in the house, give me a wave if that's the case. If not, there's one. Okay, so you'll be able to relate to this, I'm sure. Sagittarius, the energy of the sign itself is like, wow, what's out there? What's over the mountain? Gee, I wonder what would happen if we went hiking in the woods, or maybe we need to go backpack through Europe. That's the energy behind Sagittarius, exploration and adding experiences to your world. The theme for December's new moon is Sagittarius brings in big picture energy. It's not about being granular like Virgo and focusing on details. And we'll get to Virgo, obviously, in a bit here. But the theme for December, right around the 19th, and incidentally, the energy, the 19th is when the new moon happens. You will feel the energy start to build up toward this about a week before, and then it lingers for about 7 to 10 days after, as far as it being its strongest, as I touched on before. So energy does not flick on and off like a switch. There's always a baseline, and then it increases, it peaks, and then it starts to decrease. So you can start feeling this energy about a week before the actual new moon is in the official position. So the theme is thinking beyond limitations and expanding, getting out of the rut or the box. So what can help tremendously during the Sag new moon is doing something that breaks your routine. You're all at different places in your journey, without a doubt. And we all settle into routines. We're just human beings. That's the way we're wired. But under the Sag new moon, there's an opportunity for us to maybe bring something new in, try something new, maybe take something that we've been doing out of the equation. The idea, though, is to explore, learn, and begin planning something meaningful, however that looks for you. Now, if you notice, I'm not the type of astrologer who says, well, on this date, you can expect a big bag of money to fall out of the sky, because it doesn't work that way. So I give you the context of what it is that the energy is about, but then you get to figure out how to use it, which is why I don't do specific examples as I just illustrated, because for all of you, this energy is going to get played out differently. But the takeaway for the Sag new moon is doing something that's breaking the routine and giving you a sense of possibility. It's about what great things are out there that I don't even know about yet, that are beyond my current vantage point, that I may want to pursue or explore. All right, enough about Sag. All right, here's my favorite sign, because I'm a Capricorn sun. Any Capricorns in the house? I know there's one. Yes, there she is. Okay. I think I may have saw another one. So if there's a sign I know like the back of my hand better than all, I know them all, equally, but I can identify with the Capricorn because my sun is at 17 degrees of Capricorn. The new moon in Capricorn is on January 18th, 2026. Now here's the core energy of Capricorn. Remember, up here, this is just the one word description. I can speak for an hour on each of these signs, and that still wouldn't scratch the surface. I don't think anybody wants that, you or me. So I want to give it to you in digestible pieces. The core energy for us Capricorns is detachment and objectivity. Sounds lovely, right? Yeah, warm and fuzzy, not so much. Here's the deal with the Capricorns. It's the ability to look at a situation without emotional attachment. It doesn't mean that we're cruel or have a cold heart or anything like that, but it means it's like we're looking at something, figuring out what needs to be done from a practical standpoint and being objective. So it makes sense then that under the Capricorn new moon, it could be the time to engage in specific activities that maybe require you to be objective and maybe a little, not brutal, but just very direct. Because this energy, remember, when the energy connects with us at the time of the year that we're experiencing the new moon, it lights up that section of your chart, wherever your Capricorn might be placed. But even if you don't have any clue what that is or what a chart is, you could use this energy to do things that align with the energy. So Capricorns are really good at looking at a situation and say, yep, this is pretty horrible, but here's what we need to do. Here's the action that we need to take. So the theme for the Cap new moon is structure, discipline, and long-range commitment. This is the time to sit down and say, all right, where am I going? Where are we going? What needs to happen next? Maybe something that's just natural in the progression of things, or maybe it's something we've been avoiding and putting off, and the time has come to do whatever that is. So during the Cap new moon, pick one goal, just one. I can tell that you're all a bunch of overachievers because you're parents. Every parent wants to do more and more and more, and that's beautiful. But here you want to just do one thing and pick a goal for the next 4 weeks and design a simple, realistic plan that you can stick to. Here's a typical Capricorn example. They'll hear someone saying, oh yeah, I'm going to start the new year. I'm going to be eating right. I'm juicing. I'm doing all this. I'm going to be going to the gym. And the Capricorn will say, you're not going to do all that. You have good intentions, but you're just not going to do all that. Why don't you pick one and stick with it? And that's the energy that we're talking about. So the Capricorn energy can help tackle some difficult issues that may have been too emotionally charged up till that point, because Capricorn brings in this clarity and objectivity to do whatever needs to be done. Again, January 28th, 2026. All right, let's move to Aquarius now. Any Aquarius in the house? Raise your hand. Ah, there's one. Okay, excellent. There's a couple, I think. And by the way, these new moon dates, they not only apply to your rising sign or your sun sign, which is what everyone knows. You know, you say, what's your sign? Oh, I'm a Gemini. That's the sun sign. But if you know your moon sign or your rising sign, wherever you have these signs activated in your chart, you're going to feel it more intensely than someone who doesn't. So Aquarius is about being part of a group. Now, this definition is a lot different than what typical astrological systems usually define Aquarius as. A lot of times Aquarius will be, they'll say, well, you like technology and this and that. And yeah, that can happen. But that's not the underlying energy, because we're looking in VA through the research and the data. What is the underlying energy that is driving all of this? And that can get manifested in different ways. But Aquarius, it's about being part of a group. I'm not better than you. You're not better than me. We all have something to contribute, and we all need a seat at the table. And I can see some of the Aquarius folks kind of nodding. Yeah, that does make. Now, could you be into progressive change? Sure. Could you be in situations where you're loving technology and new ideas? Sure. But the idea of Aquarius is about this democratization where everybody has a place at the table, at the event, in the system, and no one's really better than anyone else. And here's the important thing. We all have a critical role. if someone doesn't do their part, the system will feel it. So what are we looking at in February with this new moon? Objective thinking, fresh insights, and the power of the collective. Here is where you pull upon your community, whether it's the community in this session here, the larger community of the group the chapter that you belong to, or the national group of helping parents heal. If that's where you want to direct your energy, it could be in your home community, your faith-based community, wherever it is that you're connected with people. February is the month to accomplish great things collaboratively. Some months the energy is about going alone, putting your head down and doing what you have to do. Other times it's more collaborative, and February is one of those months. So the action for February is look for solutions through collaboration. It's like, let's say you want to redo your deck and you don't have a specific type of saw. Oh, well, my buddy down the road has got one of those. Oh, great. Hey, do you have a blender that they could borrow? Because they're making smoothies, and you get the idea, where everybody's got a part to play. You want to join with others who share your vision, experiment together, and approach the problem from a different angle. Aquarius energy, in addition to being connected to a group, has to do with being in a situation where you're getting new insights, because it's also expansive and it opens up our mind to approach things from a new angle. So that's the Aquarius new moon, February 16th, 2026. We shall press on. Pisces. Someone in here I knew was Pisces or has a Pisces ascendant or something. We were chatting before we got going. Any Pisces? There's one. Okay. So Pisces, you're everything. You really are, because it's the last sign of the zodiac. It's sort of like where the story all wraps up. And Pisces, and March 18th, by the way, is when the new moon is. The core energy for Pisces is about dissolving borders. Well, what does that mean, Spremulli? It's about blending things together that might not on the surface seem to go together, but then when you blend them together, it's like, wow, how have I lived without that? I'll give you an example, even though I said I wasn't. These are not real, but this is my kryptonite. I love donuts. You might think that if you took a chocolate donut and put maple bacon on it, that sounds absolutely disgusting. Well, I used to think that, and I'm an equal opportunity donut eater. I will eat donuts from a gas station in the little sleeves. I will go to Krispy Kreme. Here in Asheville, we have Whole, which is rated the second best donut place in the country. But when you put maple bacon on the donut, you're blending those two things that appear on the surface not to go together, but it's like unlocking another level. That's Pisces energy. Two people being friends who you might look at and say, well, how do those two become friends? They're from completely different worlds. Or mixing and matching things from different systems or ideas that on the surface, again, may not seem to fit together, but they go together beautifully. Another thing that Pisces brings up is the whole idea of intuition, sensing what is going on. So during the month, or during this time of the Pisces new moon, everybody's intuition tends to rise a little bit. And if you have Pisces placements, you're going to be hot and on fire, because it lights that section of your chart up like a pinball machine. So the action that Pisces are encouraged to take during the new moon is to schedule some quiet time. Not to put yourself in time out, but to let yourself feel rather than force. You want to let things bubble up intuitively, and then look at where you may end up making unusual connections that at first may seem totally disconnected, but ultimately can lead to the maple bacon on a donut. I just realized I probably need to get some fake bacon as a visual aid. That can be fun. Or better yet, just get a real donut and eat it. So that's the mission for Pisces. Pisces, it's sort of like eclectic is another word to describe Pisces. So there was one Pisces in here who raised their hand or waved at me. It wouldn't surprise me if you have a vast library of books and they're ranging on subjects from how to garden to how to disarm a nuclear bomb and everything else in between, because that's Pisces. It's like it's everything. So when the intuition comes into that, that's the whole idea of this energy flowing through you and being able to be understood and interpreted. So the core message, the takeaway is listen to your inner guidance around this March 18th new moon. I mean, we always want to do that, but you've got an extra opportunity to really tap into it when the new moon rolls around. All right, so now we're technically at the beginning of the zodiac because it always starts on March 20th-ish in Aries. But again, astrology is like a soap opera. It never ends. You just jump in because the planets are always moving. The planets have moved from when we first started this class to where we are now. So it doesn't really matter where you enter the show. You just jump in. Now, this definition for Aries, and the new moon is April 17th, 2020. Oh, that should be 26. I will fix that in the notes. My cut and pasting habits probably need a little tune up. The definition for Aries in vibrational astrology is really different from what traditional astrology lays out there. With Aries are, stubborn and they just go charging in. And again, some of that can be true. But where are my Aries at? Anybody in the house that's an Aries? Okay, I don't think I see anyone, but you certainly know an Aries. Here's the deal with Aries. Aries craves, at the core of it, the underlying energy, brutal honesty. Tell me bad news if you got to tell me bad news, but don't leave me in the dark. I don't care if it hurts my feelings. I want to know where I stand with you. So just lay it out there. That's the core energy that's all about Aries. Now, yeah, the other things that come in, taking action and striking out on your own, that can be related, but it's all about looking at things through the lens. It's similar to Capricorn, but here's what's different about it. Aries is going to be more inclined to want to hear that brutal feedback, that honest feedback. We're not talking about being mean, but it's just like, let's just look at what we're dealing with here. And they just want honesty. They don't want to play games with people. So what do we do with this Aries energy? Well, the theme for the month of April is going to be initiative, courage, taking the first step, but doing so through the lens of honesty. In other words, and this is just a hypothetical, if someone was going to go into a new business venture, it could be anything from selling cupcakes to fire hoses, doesn't matter. The Aries in them will be encouraging them to look at things from a true, honest perspective. Meaning, have you done the analysis on what it's going to cost you to make a profit? How much outlay? How long till you make a profit? That stuff that we may want to push under the rug is what exactly that Aries is bringing to the surface. Like you got to look at this and you have to understand the true, real deal behind something. And that also shows up in relationships. So on this new moon, this is a time to be aware of and potentially increase the honesty when you're interacting with folks. Maybe you've had situations where you've been holding your tongue and you got to get something off your chest. Maybe you need to be the one who's on the receiving side of that. These are the type of things that often show up around the Aries new moon. So what do we do? There is an action element. Of course, Aries is a fire sign. I'm not going to get into all the elements there, but fire is energy, action, making things happen. So you want to do something that you've postponed and you want to take some action because Aries is also very action oriented, even if it's imperfect. We're not looking for perfection. So have the conversation. take the first step. Get out of park and get into drive. You can fine tune and course correct later, but get moving. So that is Aries new moon, April 17th, 2026. And I will again change that for you all. All right. Taurus new moon. We just had a Taurus full moon last week. If we got time at the end, I can tell you about that and share personal experience. May 16th, 2026. Core energy. Unfolding from within. Any Taurus in the house? Yeah, there's one. Okay. So just nod for me if this is the case. Your three favorite words are most likely don't rush me. Is that correct? Taurus likes things to unfold naturally. You can't rush a Taurus. Now, traditional astrology is like, well, they like to eat bonbons and surround themselves in decadence and all that. And again, some of that may be true. But in VA, we're looking at what's always true from the underlying energetic perspective. And Taurus is very much like taking things from a Taoist tradition. Just kind of let it unfold naturally. It is not the time to rush. Taurus energy does not like to rush. Have you ever, the Taurus mascot is the bull mascot, the sign figure. Have you ever tried to rush a bull? That doesn't end well. If you're trying to, prod them through the streets, it's like, yeah, boom, they'll step on you. So, even though we don't deal in archetypes, they do have their place to kind of illustrate a point. So this is not a time to rush or force. It's kind of just sit back and it's like, all right, I want to plant some seeds, cosmic or otherwise, but what am I going to do? Well, what feels right? So the theme is stability, grounding, and consistent effort. The grounding is probably the most critical during this phase, because if you're grounded, you'll know what needs to happen next because it'll unfold naturally. So an action to take under Taurus new moon is simplify. Choose one daily habit that supports your well-being over time and commit to it. It can be as simple as wanting to floss your teeth. Believe it or not, I found this out from the dentist. Less than half of the people who have great oral hygiene by brushing, half of them floss. And it could be the biggest challenge to get someone to floss. But if you pair the flossing with the actual brushing, meaning before you brush, you have to floss first, that little change can have long-lasting impacts that go well into your years ahead. So it's about this idea of, well, what am I going to do? What daily habit? You'll know. The universe will serve it up for you. That's the Taurus energy. Things snap into place if we don't force them. If you do force it, well, you may end up like that poor person who tried to force the bull and didn't end well for them. Taurus new moon, May 16th, 2026. All right. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I know it gets a little tedious, but hopefully this is giving you things to not just think about, but an action plan that you can work with for the year ahead, starting today. Let's get to Gemini, the curiosity seekers. Any Geminis in the house? Give me a wave if that's you or someone you know. There's another. Okay, so we got Gemini as a moon, I think. Okay, so Gemini new moon, June 15th, 2026. Core energy of Gemini is curiosity. Why is the sky blue? Why is fire hot? Why do I have cold mist coming out of my mouth when the temperature is like 20 degrees? Why? Gemini has this insatiable curiosity, wanting to ask questions and explore things and dig deep. That's the core energy. The theme for the new moon is exploration and flexible thinking. This is the time to explore something new. Now, I'm not talking about just, let's say, go and try and square dancing if you've never done that before, although you could, but this is more deep dive. So you might say, I've always wanted to learn how to make fresh mozzarella cheese at home. Well, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to go to YouTube and let me look at 15 different videos that talks about how to do different things. And then you may say, all right, well, I got to order some supplies. And then you start talking to people, and maybe you join a group online that talks about how to make fresh mozzarella at home. The idea is exploring things and being flexible in your thought process. Because what can happen during a Gemini new moon cycle? And by the way, that's all astrology is. It's cycles nested within cycles, nested within cycles. Some cycles take 248 years. Pluto going around the whole zodiac. Other cycles can happen in a day. I mean, I could drill things down specifically to what the energy is like every hour of the day for an individual. You don't generally need to get to that level of granularity, but the idea is looking at things through this lens of cycles really helps us get a handle on all of this energy. So the idea is wanting to get take advantage of this cycle by not clinging to old ideas or old beliefs that may be holding you back. If things are working for you, great. Life is good. You're happy. I'm happy. But if things that may be limiting you in any department of life, the Gemini new moon can infuse new ideas and new approaches for you to explore. And this doesn't only involve things, it involves people, because you can see the action point that I have here. Have meaningful conversations or explore new ideas, ask questions, follow your interest. So even though Gemini is not Taurus, you follow your interest and let that lead the way. That's the type of thing that Gemini likes, because then you can explore and dig into something below the surface level. And if you get into something, whether it's a support group or a group on making cheese or this or that or whatever, and you don't like it and it doesn't jive with you, no problem. You don't have to stay. Sometimes people are under the misconception that, well, I connected with this group of people, but I'm just not quite feeling it. It's not for you. One of my favorite phrases is not everything is for everybody. That's just reality. Not everything is for everybody. And that's completely cool, because we're all wired differently and have different energy configurations in our chart. So this could be a time of curiosity, expansion, and new ideas coming into your world. June 15th, 2026. All right, let's get into the Cancer new moon, July 14th, 2026. Any Cancers in the house? Give me a wave if that's the case. So Cancers, I don't think I saw any. If I did and I missed you, forgive me. Again, my eyes are not the best. Cancer can be summed up in a nutshell by the word protection. If you have a lot of Cancer in your chart, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Cancers want to protect people and things. But here's the caveat. The people and things that Cancer wants to protect are usually things and people that are close to them and within their sphere. Doesn't necessarily mean Cancer is going to go out and save the world. That's not the energy. They want to protect their cosmic egg, so to speak. So if you're in the tribe, in the group, part of the system, Cancer will go to the end of the earth for you. If you're from a different tribe, maybe not so much. But Cancer, in a nutshell, is wanting to protect. So what does that look like then under the new moon in July? The theme is emotional connection, nurturing, and safety. And the way that gets done is, and remember, not only will you be on the action end of this energy, now that you have the blueprint, you'll start to see that you're on the receiving end of it, because people engage in a lot of these behaviors, even if they know nothing about astrology. The cycles do influence us, whether we're aware of them or not. So during this time, you may be reaching out to someone that you care about, expressing some supportive, heartfelt appreciation. Again, you can be on the receiving side of this, but Cancer is the time to lean in to supporting your tribe, supporting your group, your people. not only dealing with the journeys that you're all on that bind you together, but outside of that, it's where do we feel connected where we can lend support. And when I say these things like lend support, come up with ideas, a lot of times people mistake that for it having to be something big and grand and glorious. And it doesn't have to be. Support can be making a phone call saying, hey, how you doing? I know this is a rough month for you. What's going on? How can I help? And it could be as large as, helping someone relocate and move, bringing moving vans and all that. So, there's all these different areas here. It's not one size fits all. So the whole idea of the Cancer new moon is protection and support. July 14th, 2026. All right, now we're coming right around the final bend here. We're in the Leo new moon, August 12th. And here's one of the fun ones for me. Leo is one of those signs that everyone thinks is, well, the performer, they're out in front. And okay, some of that's true. I come by it honestly. I have a Leo ascendant. So there's a little bit of a quote performer in me. I've been speaking for years, love the stage, life is good. But that's not what the research from VA has indicated. It's not about being the screaming extrovert. Leo's all about doing things your own way. Any Leos in the house? Anybody? Anyone? Doesn't look like it. All right. It's about marching to the beat of your own drum. And you could be an extrovert and do that, but guess what? You could also be an introvert and do it. In the database, Jean Piaget, a famous child psychologist, because we have an astro database we do research with that has about 90,000 charts of people who are public figures that we can then go back and look at the biography and correlate that against what's going on in their chart. He's what we call a super Leo. I think he had 6 planets in that section of his chart. And he was one of the most introverted people in in the world. I mean, he didn't like to interact with a whole bunch of people, but yet he had this groundbreaking research that was individualistically not created, but discovered by him that put him in his own category because no one had approached child psychology and developmental psychology the way that he did. So the idea is do things your way under Leo energy and be the individual. So the theme, as you might expect, is creativity, self-expression, heartfelt confidence. What do? Do one thing that lets you express your authentic self. In other words, you don't have to modify, change, or shift your behavior at all. You want to do something, whether it's art related, music, speaking up, being seen, but it has to ring true to your core. Because that's what Leo's energy is about. It's not copying someone else. It's not trying to mimic other people's behavior or conform. It's what is it that sets you apart as an individual. And as everyone who's in this room right now and listening beyond and on the planet itself, we all have some individual components that truly make us stand out and be unique. Under the Leo new moon, this is the time to plant those unique seeds to let them take sprout. August 12th, 2026. All right. Any Virgos in the house? My mom is a Virgo, so I get to pick on this sign a little bit more than some of the others. She's not here right now, so please don't call her and tell her. Virgos have this desire, and the new moon is September 10th, 2026. Virgo strives for perfection. That's pretty synonymous with what other systems of astrology have concluded. But VA takes it a step further, and here's what the research indicated. So those of you who may have Virgos that are placed, Virgo placements or no Virgos, see if this definition fits. Perfection is part of it. They see this image in their mind of how things should look, should be, and they want to bring that into reality. But it goes beyond that. The other thing that affects Virgos is they have this drive to want to fix things. Everything. They want to fix you. They want to fix the way you look, the way you eat, the way that you approach things. They just want to fix things. And it's not necessarily coming out of a place of goodwill. It's because Virgos see things in their mind, this perfection piece, and unless reality matches that perfection, Virgos feel a little bit of angst. But the core energy is doing things the right way, perfection. So what do we do with this Virgo energy? The theme is practical improvement and refining small details. Here's where you get out, the real fine paintbrushes and fill in the little gaps that might have been missed after the roller went by. Here's where you maybe sand the edges of that woodworking piece that you've been working on to make it seamless and smooth. It's the time to execute on the details of whatever situations you're dealing with or encountering at that point in time. A good way to engage in Virgo energy without letting it get carrying you away is to organize one thing that has been in chaos. Just one thing. It could be the junk drawer, garage, your closet, whatever it might be. It's about making sure that it's something that you could accomplish as opposed to, well, I want to reorganize my whole house. Well, yeah, you could do that, but it's going to take more than a month where you got this energy blazing at its hottest temp, so to speak. So maybe break it down a little bit. And that's another example of Virgo thinking, well, I need to reorganize everything from top to bottom. Yeah, it might be nice, but do you really? Maybe you do. But then again, maybe you don't. So under the Virgo new moon, it is a time to really kind of dial things in. And I urge people, even though if you've got Virgo placements, that you're striving for perfection, you don't want to get hung up in the perfection. I don't know how many of you are Better Call Saul fans in here. If you are, give me a wave. Just kind of curious. A couple of folks, there's a phrase that he said, and if you don't know the show, it doesn't matter. He was a smarmy lawyer. But he said, sometimes perfection is the enemy of perfectly adequate. And there are some situations where that is very, very true. Sometimes you just got to get something done. Doesn't need to be perfect. All right. So again, Virgo, new moon, September 10th through the 26th. Whoop. All right. Last sign. I'm going to give you some resources. Then we're going to open it up for questions. Now we're back at Libra. So this is next October 10th, 2026. The core energy with Libra is equity. If you look at the glyph for Libra, it's the scales of justice. It's kind of shown here in the artistic expression. So Libras want things in harmony and in balance and having mutual understanding. In VA, we often describe Libras as wanting to play catch, metaphorically. Here's an example of how that shows up. You give a gift to someone who's a high Libra or got a lot of Libra in their chart. The Libra is going to look at that and say, oh my God, this is great. I love it. It's fantastic. And 2 days later, you're going to get a handwritten thank you note because you've thrown the ball to them and they caught it. And now they feel the need to reciprocate and say, that was so wonderful. Thank you so much. It's fantastic. Now, conversely, if a Libra gives you a gift and you don't acknowledge it, well, what's wrong? Do they not like it? Oh my, I thought I spent a lot of time picking this out, but maybe they hate it. What's going on? And there's that imbalance. So Libras strike that idea of wanting to be equal, people being peers, no one is dominating anyone else. So that theme of cooperation and harmony, very important under the Libra new moon. And the action is bring balance to a relationship or interaction. Where may have things be, and the way you want to use this stuff is focus on the current month, maybe look ahead. Don't worry about Libra stuff now, that's a year away. You want to focus on where the energy is now, but having this in advance kind of enables you to plan things out so that you're not surprised. But you don't want to try to swallow the whole zodiac at once because you're going to be overwhelmed. So during the Libra new moon, great time to kind of tune up relationships, listen more, and seek connection without necessarily forcing an agreement. You can't force a Libra. It just has to, it's similar from that idea of naturally having things unflow as we talked about with Taurus. But here it's like there has to be the give and take. If someone is given and someone else is always taken and it never goes the other direction, that doesn't pan out well for Libras. They get very frustrated and they usually kind of bail on that situation. So that's October 10th, 2026. So that's the whole new moon cycle for the next 12 months. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, where do I go from here? Maybe this introduction to vibrational astrology has piqued your interest to want to go down the rabbit hole, as it certainly did for me. I remember the first time I ran across vibrational astrology compared to other systems, like, oh, this is cool. This is everything. It has the science, it has the mystical part, it has the spiritual part, and I was hooked. So here are some resources for you. And again, you'll get the handouts here. If you do nothing else, what I would encourage you to do is sign up for my weekly vibrational astrology forecast on my site. Completely free. In fact, if you sign up today, you'll get it tomorrow. I send it out every Sunday, once a week, and I discuss the vibrations that are active for the week. Now, I didn't have time in this lecture to get into vibrations, but in the newsletter, it explains what's going on. As I said, it's free. I send it out every Sunday, and you'll get Sundays for sure because I haven't written it yet. So anyone who gets on the list there, you'll be kept abreast. So I cover whatever's happening in the sky, a couple of vibrations, any new or full moon activity, and you can check that out. And this link will be hot in your handouts. Something else that you may want to do is connect with me on social for daily energy updates. These are slivers of like a weather report. The energy is moving quick. So on social, I do daily updates. Social of your choice. You can follow me on any of these. The moniker is always Blue Ridge Astrology, but it's like just a 1-minute check-in. It's sort of like you're going to need a raincoat today, or it might be very windy. That's the idea of the cosmic weather report. Those forecasts won't change your life. I would not make any major decisions based on those forecasts because we're just looking at what's happening for the collective. Where it gets personal is when we work with you individually with your chart, but that energy is still there to work with. If you want to go a step further and you want to dive into the actual vibrations for the month ahead, I do a monthly class. If you're interested, it's super inexpensive. It's $10. If you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get alerted to when that happens, but you may want to mark your calendar. Whatever, that's fine. Come, don't come. I'm not pushing stuff here, but I like to give a variety of things depending on your level of interest as to how you can dive into this further should you wish to. That concludes the formal presentation. I am now happy to open it up for questions, and if I can ask our lovely hosts to see if we have any questions in the chat, and I will do my very best to answer as many as I can.
Oh my God, that was fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Like digestible and practical. And I loved your idea of, because I was putting it in my phone each month.
Excellent. Yeah. And that's what I always suggest, even if you do, let's say you decide to come for the monthly thing. I always tell people get a calendar out, because if you don't put it in some mechanism where it's going to be resurfaced for you, it's gone. So when you put it in your phone, it'll say, oh, here's what I need to do.
Yes.
And you're golden.
Yep. So 2 questions, and we'll go to two questions. I was thinking one question, I don't know if you can answer this, but like when you were in Sagittarius, my son was a Sagittarius. He's still a Sagittarius. I'm
Yes.
They go to spirit, their personalities don't really change.
Well, obviously, I don't have the research on what happens beyond this realm, but the theory in VA is that when they came into this existence here on Earth, the planetary configuration is what kind of shapes their wiring. So yeah, I mean, I would say according to the theory, they're still a Sagittarius. I mean, so was your son an explorer? Did he always want to go kind of see what's out there and kind of tackle the world? And, yeah.
Big hiker. Yeah.
Yeah.
He did a lot. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
The other question, so Kelly, our leader in spirit, so she would do a 6-card new moon spread with an oracle deck.
Sure.
And so I've started doing it, not regularly, but I'm wondering, as we're looking at whatever the new moon is in that sign, and I'm doing the spread, and there's certain questions, and I use a pendulum to
Sure.
pick the cards for
Yep.
me.
Yep.
Spirit picks them. And so with that,
Which,
I have a
by the
good
way,
practice.
which, by the way, let me just jump in. And you know, I'm not being rude because I told you I have ADHD before we got on here, and I'll forget this. It's all energy. A pendulum responds to energy. Shuffling the cards responds to energy. Vibrational astrology is the energy business. So, however you use tools to get to where you need to go, it's all energetically connected. So, I just wanted to mention that. So that's
Thank you.
yeah. So
I love
go ahead.
that.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, not at all. I love it. And so I'll put those questions like in our Facebook group. So if anybody else wants to do the new moon spread
Yeah,
on the new moon. Okay, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Okay, let's open up for questions. Do we want to go ahead and
absolutely.
like raise our hand?
We
So
did
that
have one question
oh,
from
go ahead.
Sandra back asking, how did you get interested in this particular type of astrology?
Okay. So here's my story in like 30 seconds because I don't want to, I'd rather answer your questions, but I'll give you the skinny. I had an astrological reading back in 1994. Didn't know anything about astrology, was raised in a faith-based system where astrology was like the devil. So I certainly wasn't going to go, wasn't going to go seeking it out. It was between my undergraduate and graduate year in college. I was working at a mental health hospital, and I wasn't all that happy. I didn't know if I needed to go back to school, get a master's, what to do, where to go. I didn't know anything. Someone gifted me a reading with their professional astrologer, who, by the way, I still see to this day. The woman's 84 years old. And even though I'm an astrologer, I want to hear someone else's take on what I got to say. Anyways, I went in. I remember this. I didn't know what to expect. It was a very normal woman. There were no incense burning. There were no, uh, energy chambers or goat sacrifices. Just a woman sitting at a desk reviewing my chart after she ran all the information and calculated the charts. And she proceeded to summarize my past challenges, what I was dealing with at that moment, and then make some forecast notes as to what to expect down the road. And she literally blew me away. Specific information about issues that I had struggled with, what was on my plate currently, and then I was very eager to find out if her forecast lined up. And of course, I tracked it because I'm a data guy. And that planted the seed. So that was in 94. And then I started getting books and looking at stuff. 2007 rolls around. I end up procuring some professional astrology software because there's a lot of math that goes on behind the scenes and we do a lot of calculations. And then the floodgates open. Anyone within 100-mile radius of me is like, you got your birth data? Let me run your chart. And then people would be like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I would start explaining what I'd see in the chart. And they say, yeah, that makes sense. And then I started dipping my toe into the forecasting arena. And I said, they said, well, I got this big meeting coming up. What can I expect? And, granted, I was new. I was a hobbyist, I guess, at that point. But then what happened was people were starting to say, that forecast thing you did for me several months ago? I said, yeah. They said, well, could you do it again? And I'll pay you. And before you know it, I had a side hustle before the term was coined. And then vibrational astrology showed up on my radar a few years later, like in 2010. And David Cochran, I never pass up an opportunity to mention his name. He is the founder of vibrational astrology, and he started doing this work in 1972, collecting research, and he's still alive today. And he's the guy who trained me. I just came out of last year was like a 2.5 year intense mentorship with him. And what drew me to VA above every other form of astrology, and there are other systems out there, there's probably 70 of them if you go to look, is that VA did not subscribe to what I call crowbar theory. And that is oftentimes, if you're looking at something using traditional methods, some things don't line up. And it's very tempting to say, well, it might be this, or you need to look at this element, or maybe check, another section of the chart. And it's like, yeah, this doesn't feel all that scientific. And the science is important to me. And that's what VA brings to the table. It still keeps the door wide open for the magical, mystical, metaphysical side of things, but we're just studying it. And then when I discovered that there was a huge alignment in the VA research, along with the current quantum mechanics research, it's like, oh, this is all making sense. And the idea, didn't want to get too technical today. The idea with VA is that we're kind of getting information from a higher dimensional space that we don't have access to unless we kind of crack open the door. And that's what VA ultimately does. It kind of cracks open the door so that we can see what's happening. And when I'm teaching to other astrologers, there's a slide that I have in here that says, never try to teach calculus to a dog. It wastes your time and it annoys the dog. And the reason you don't want to teach calculus to a dog is they're on a different plane. They won't get it. So putting all that together is now a long-winded answer, I'm sorry, of how I got to where I'm at.
We do have another question, but
Sure.
real quick. And so what you just went through,
Mhm.
every month, is that every year or is that just for that specific year? Does that make sense?
Oh, so here's the thing. It depends on how deep you want to go.
Okay.
So what I did here, just to make it digestible, is I pulled out and what we saw in the interpretations there is the meaning for the new moon that is linked to the particular sign. Now, where it gets different is what other planets are at play. So what I just described can hold true year after year. But when you want to look at the other planets that are at play, that could add different color to what's going on. It could add different flavoring as far as, well, is the energy going to be a little amped up? Yeah, you still might have that individualistic Leo energy, but is it going to be a smooth rollout? Might there be some friction? So the general structure will stay the same energetically as far as what the energy is like in that new moon, but every one of them is nuanced, which is why, forecasts never end, because very rarely do you ever get two exact configurations of everything in the sky, if ever. So there's other players that are into the mix that are shaping the forecast in addition to what we saw today. But this is enough to get you going.
Understood. Good. Someone is asking if you recommend any books about fundamental VA or go more in depth.
All right.
To go more in depth, excuse me.
So I'll give you the book in a minute here, but the easiest thing to do, follow my daily forecasts. And actually, I just changed format, but you want to go back and look at the ones from the past 2 years. Now, why am I suggesting that you go and look at old forecasts? Because old forecasts will give you the definitions of what the planets mean. In VA, every planet, every sign, every house regulates one process. That's how we're able to study it. Now, for the book recommendation, and I want to give you a caveat before I hold this up. This book is very valuable, but it is written with a ton of typos. It was transcribed from a lecture, apparently, and the then wife of David Cochran I don't think English is her first language. I don't know that for certain, but it is fraught with typos. The Virgos will go nuts because you'll be pulling your hair out. But here's the book, and yours won't come with the gaffer's tape. It's called Vibrational Astrology, The Essentials by David Cochran. And I believe the only place to get this is through a company called Cosmic Patterns. They're the people who actually make the astrology software that I use. They may be selling it through Amazon, but this I would equate to being very much like a music theory book for those of you who are musicians in here, meaning everything you need is in here. Then it just takes 20 years to figure out what to do with it because it gives you the basic elements of what everything means. And that's a good starting point because VAs, I'm not going to lie, it's complicated because it is real astrology. This is not pop astrology like you see online and in papers. There's a lot going on, but I would suggest starting there and try it out. Maybe you do that during your Gemini month because you may get into it and say, oh, this is great. Or you may say, oh, it's just not for me. And there are other systems of astrology out there. And I'll never say that VA is the best system. I mean, who can make that claim? It's the best system for me because it resonates with the way that I like to operate. But for example, Vedic astrology, which is very, very popular in India, totally different approach. Hellenistic astrology is very hot these days. Vedius Valens was kind of the guy who put that together. So there's all different nooks and crannies in there, and there's a place for everybody.
There is another question. Does
Sure.
this 12-month cycle apply the same way to every sun sign?
I'm not sure I understand the question. The
And
cycle
Deepa,
repeat.
would you like to unmute and
Yeah, unmute.
yeah,
Just talk to me. That's fine.
Yeah. please?
Thank you so much for this lovely presentation.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
I'm actually in India right now, and you just
Oh.
mentioned Vedic astrology.
Sure, yeah. Okay, then you know better than I do.
No, I don't actually. I'm a real novice, but I found your presentation very interesting.
Well,
Very,
thank you.
very interesting. What I'm wanting to ask is that since you name every new moon according to a sun sign,
Mhm.
so right now we are in the Scorpio cycle, for instance. Does it apply the same way to me, who I'm a Libran? So, and will it apply the same way to another Virgo, or will it apply the same way to another Piscean in terms
Okay.
of action and and the broad orientation of the new moon?
Excellent question, and I'm glad you asked that. So here's how I describe that situation, and this applies for the daily updates that I do on social as well. Everyone will experience the energy to some degree, but here's what makes it personal and different. Depending on what's going on in your birth chart, again, that moment of time that we took our first breath, and here we are on planet Earth, depending on what planets you have in a particular sign will dictate how much or little you experience that energy. So let me do this. This might be helpful for me to do this. Let me share my screen again. And what I'm going to do, give me just a second. I got to navigate over here because I'm going to show you an actual chart. I'll show you my chart. I don't care. My birth date is out there for the world to see. Okay, can you see a chart on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so don't worry. This is basically an astrological chart. When I'm talking about placements, what we're talking about is, and it may be hard to see this, but hopefully you can, and it's not going to let me go any bigger. Down here, this is like let me pick a different wheel because this is not all that user friendly. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so these are placements. These are planets. That's Mars, that's Jupiter, that's Venus, that is Neptune, that's Mercury. So you'll notice here, this is Sagittarius, Sag, and Sag. Forget the part of fortune. This X doesn't mean anything for now. I have 3 planets that are placed inside of the sign Sagittarius. So what does that mean? That means for me, when the Sagittarius new moon rolls around or the Sagittarius full moon, that's a whole nother presentation. But whenever Sagittarius is activated, I'm going to feel it much more than, let's say, Taurus, which is up here, where I only have 1 planet in Taurus. I've got Saturn in Taurus up here. I've got 1 planet in Gemini, which is the moon. So depending on how many planets you have in a specific sign, that dictates how hard the energy hits. But even at a baseline level, everyone will experience it at a collective approach. And what differentiates how strongly or not so strongly beyond that you experience it comes down to the placements in the actual chart of your birth chart. Does that help make that a little bit easier to digest?
Very much, very much. I think I understand it. So one has to go deeper into your own birth chart to understand which month is going to impact you, like how.
Yeah, and by the way, there's a resource that I've got a free chart generator hidden on my website. I'll get that to Renee and Tammy, and they can put a link to that so you don't have to spend any money. And it'll give you a very simple chart, but you can kind of see where the placements are in a chart to just give you an idea as to what months might be most important to tune into, where other months may not be as critical. Like I got nothing in Cancer. I mean, it's on my 12th house cusp. You can see it here. So when Cancer rolls around, it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect me, but it's not going to affect me nearly as much as Scorpio will, because I've got more activation there.
Mhm. I get that. I understand that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
And not to go deep into this, but the one on that chart where it
Oh,
said
here, I'll bring it
2,
back.
3,
Hang on.
is that like January, February? Is that the months?
Hang on just a second here. Let me go back to here.
Not that.
Hang on.
It was
Okay.
the inner ring where it just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the
Oh,
inner
okay.
ring. Is
So
that the months?
no, so these are houses. You've heard,
Oh, okay.
well, the moon is in the 7th house and
Got it.
Jupiter aligns with Mars. Houses are departments of life.
Okay, got
Meaning
it.
your persona. There's a whole bunch of different, we can do another thing in the future if you want, on a walk through the houses, but they're not the months, and the houses are different for everyone. The planets are different for everyone. And what these lines are, I don't expect you to make sense of this, but this is just showing the angular distance between planetary placements. And that's where the circuits get connected. So if I go back to this other graph here, this one does a better job. This shows us wherever the lines get darker, doesn't matter the color, the more energy is flowing through those circuits. And then when we get into like the vibrations, this is just enough, just for illustration purposes, 17, 19, 20. All right. And we start to really get into the layers of the chart. Like you can see here, lots of energy in my 13th vibration. Well, the 13th vibration has to do with personal mission and calling. So you got this circuit where 1, 2, 3, 4 planets are connected all in the green zone. Then you've got this connection here. The more connections that are there, the more energy flows. And that's where we start to become individualized as people, because everyone's configuration is different. Yeah, there are similarities, but we're more different than similar as far as the actual setup of a chart.
Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Can
A
I ask
lot of
one
thank
more?
yous. Oh, go ahead, Nadita.
I just need to know what is the basic way to calculate. Like I notice in the chat, some people have written, I am a this with a rising this and a thing. How do you do that? How do you reach that?
Okay, that's probably a bit more technical than what we want to get into here today.
Oh, okay. Then
However,
let it be. Let it be.
however,
I'll be done.
no, that's right. I know that I sound like a broken record, but that's exactly the type of stuff that I put in the newsletter. In fact, since I haven't written it yet, maybe tomorrow's episode will be how to figure out your sun, moon, and rising sign. So opt into the website, and there's a link, like I said, that I don't put out publicly on the website, but for my people, subscribers, followers, where you could just quickly generate a birth chart, and I could show you exactly how to do just that. I think you just gave me the content for tomorrow. Thank you.
Going with the flow. That's
Going with the flow. Exactly. Well, we're on the flip
I'm the
side
Libran here.
of the Taurus full moon. So this whole week has been going with the flow for me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Michael. There's a lot of comments as you were talking. We were sharing some of our signs and our rising
Cool.
signs. That's why Anita brought that up, because if we know it.
Yep.
We are going to share the recording on our Facebook group
Excellent.
page, and we're going to share, that link to the free, what you have and all that other stuff in the next
Yeah.
couple of days.
Yep.
Thank you so much.